Let's just start with a short meditation just to bring our minds into focus. So we can do maybe just a concentration meditation for 5 minutes, and then we can just do maybe something on impermanence for 10 minutes, something like that. So I think from posture standpoint, the most important thing to remember is just to keep our backs in a natural posture, not slouching and not weirdly straight, but just in its normal curvature. If it helps, we can start with focusing on the breath. Either by counting the breath in and out, or being aware of the sensation in the nostrils, or the rise and fall of the tummy. Many ways to concentrate on the breath. If we find that a mind is going helter-skelter, no matter what we try, then one way to counteract is to do a body scan. You start at the tip of your toes and work up to your head, placing attention at various places of the body. And then when we have our mind sufficiently subdued, we can bring our attention, instead of actively on the breath, we can lower our attention from our head, if you will, and go down to the heart. We can just lower our attention to the heart and just place our attention there. But if that's difficult, then we can just keep on the breath. And as always, uh, we don't actively try to stop thoughts from arising, but as they arise, we let them, we don't follow them. And instead just keep our attention at our heart. If thoughts do arise and we're having trouble letting them go, then there are two approaches to not get caught up with them. One is, as a thought arises, we notice the thought, maybe label it, but not necessarily. We just notice the thought and just notice it without getting caught up in its story. So we just notice it, and the thought will automatically disappear into the stream that it came from. Or if the thought is extremely persistent or really beguiling, then the other approach is a more forceful approach, which is you pretend as if you are cutting, vegetables on the cutting board, like celery or potatoes or onions or whatever. And you have a sharp knife and you just chop up the thought. That can work sometimes too. Now we can bring up a remembering consciousness of how fortunate we are in our present form, in our present situation in life, in our present human life, because of countless or vast store of positive merit that we have created in the past. It's why we have this precious human life at this time. Which they say, the scriptures say, is the only body with which one can achieve enlightenment or liberation. No other form, not even the God realms, and certainly none of the lower realms will get us to enlightenment. So we have that form. We are living at a time where the Buddha has appeared only 2,500 years ago. A finger snap in history. That his teachings are still extant. There are many great qualified masters who can interpret the teachings for us and try to make it as easy as for us as possible. That we are interested in the teachings, that we're interested in making our lives and others' lives better. That we have the faculty to understand the teaching, put them into practice. That we have the leisure time, if you will, to devote to learning, studying, and practice. That our basic needs are taken care of. And especially that we are, we have access to, we follow very rare, precious, qualified masters like Rinpoche, who have all the 10 qualities as given in the sutra and all the 10 qualities as given in the Tantra. To be a qualified teacher, to lead students, to show the way. With compassion, with love, never getting disheartened. always patient, exhorting us even though we are lazy and we don't want to do it. Writing simple rituals so that we in our so it's as easy as possible in our busy lives to keep making progress. And finally, that it continues to stay with us so that we can continue to be inspired by him and be like him. So in summary, we probably have the most optimal conditions that we could possibly imagine in all our lives from beginningless time in the past and all the way until the time of our enlightenment in the future. There is nothing more that we could need. Nothing we're lacking. It's just a matter of us making the effort. So let's resolve that for the next hour and a half or whatever, and for the next number of classes that next number of sessions that this class continues, we will make that effort to bring ourselves closer to the Guru and get his blessings or her blessings and reach our ultimate potential to not just liberate ourselves, but to bring to liberation all beings who are much worse off than we are. So with that, we can come to the present. So, guru devotion, right? So this is the this is one of the difficult topics. There's a few topics they say in the Lamrim that are the most difficult. One is guru devotion. One is karma, obviously. And what's the other one? I think maybe those are the two. But they put guru devotion at the beginning. And if you look in the Lamrim, they put guru devotion in the beginning. Although we don't, in the Discovering Buddhism series, that's not how it's listed. So guru devotion is somewhere halfway in the middle. And I think that's partly because it's for a different audience. So, for the Discovering Buddhism students, it's important to have the basics, other basics before they tackle the difficult topic of guru devotion. On the other hand, for the Tibetans and for the other practitioners, They study Guru devotion because they say Guru devotion is the root of the path. So without following a spiritual teacher, they say we cannot make, I'm not sure I want to say any progress, but certainly much progress. And so the interesting thing is, why do we need a guru, right? I mean, there's tons of, there's all these texts, which one doesn't even have to read in Tibetan anymore. There's all these English translations by multiple, gifted translators. So why can't we just read them? And, and I mean, we're intelligent people. And so why can't we just read them and just put them into practice, right? So why not? So I'll ask you, Nancy, since you're the only one, I don't have anybody else to ask you. So, this can be just a discussion. This doesn't need to be a lecture. This is just a discussion, right? So why not just there's lots of books that His Holiness has written, and lots of books like like we have Lama Zopa's books, and we have, but so, there's lots of people who don't come to Lama Zopa's teachings or his retreats. They just read his books. But why not just continue like that, right?
Yeah, and I used to think that too, because I started with a group up in Los Alamos, and it was kind of Zen, and it morphed into some Vipassana. We would sometimes come down to, and sometimes I would just think, why don't we just sit like the Buddha did and just, do that, just sit and meditate. Well, now that I've been here, I never had a teacher before, and we would read a book and discuss it, and there wasn't really a qualified teacher, and we would go to some things down here. But then the first time I went to the Robina by accident to that retreat that she did that got me into TNL, I was expecting to go, and I had my cushion and just sit and meditate. So I sat down, and I had registered late, but they told me it was fine to come. And I was kind of on the edge with my cushion and ready to meditate. And they start with these chants, and everybody has a book. And Claire Zarowski and Craig were sitting right behind me, and they gave me a book, and I didn't know what the hell anything was. And then I thought, okay, now we're just going to meditate. And this woman starts talking, and I thought she was just introducing. And then she kept talking. And I thought, oh my God, this is like a real teaching, And someone next to me lent me paper, and I took notes. So now, since I've been here, I realized that there are ways to practice. And sometimes, just sitting by yourself without understanding karma or any of the teachings, just sitting and letting things come into your mind and out and thinking, oh, I feel very blissful, is not really getting you anywhere. And so since I've been here and getting teachings and finding out what the different techniques are and why we do certain things, and like this class, why do we need a teacher? Well, it kind of gets you back on the right track sometimes, because we can misinterpret things. I can read Lama Zopa's books and I can think of it one way, and maybe that's okay. Maybe I'm supposed to get what I need out of it, but you can really go off on the wrong path, I think, So I do think that it's important to have a teacher.
Right. Yeah, because each of us has our own preconceived notions. We don't come in as a blank slate, right? We come in with preconceived notions. And, we read the same books, but we may have different interpretations, and those interpretations often are not correct.
Yeah.
Right? And especially with topics like karma and death and rebirth and, wisdom, the nature of reality. And, and the Buddha had, Buddha, they say, the scriptures of the Buddha gave 84,000 kinds of teachings, 84,000 teachings, right? There's Tripitaka, not the Tripitaka. Anyway, 84,000 teachings for 84,000 different kinds of minds, right? But the problem is we don't know which kind of mind we have. We don't know which kind of teaching to go read, right? But a teacher does know because he or she has done the work and knows the way, at least, right? And so they can guide the student. And, and it's very interesting, even great meditators can go off the wrong track. I know. One of my teachers, he's a monk, and he had been meditating on emptiness for maybe 8-10 years. And after 8-10 years, he realized that he actually had the wrong object of meditation.
Oh.
Right? And that's where you need a teacher to point you and say, no, that's not it. Right? I mean, this is really it. Right? And so, and one can do harm, if one doesn't get put on the right track at the right time. Right? And so that's the thing, I mean, we think that, like people, I know people think that we can just read, because back in the old days, let's face it, the Tibetans, they didn't have the kind of schooling that we do. They weren't brought up to have, what do you call it? Reasoning like we do, right? We learn, logical reasoning and how to interpret things and so forth and so on. So we're much sharper in that way, So the Western students are much sharper than the average Tibetan, But I'm not talking about the Tibetan monks in the monasteries, but I'm just saying in general, right? But we have much more hubris. That's the thing. We are, we think we know everything. We think that, we think we know everything, and that we think we can understand everything. We don't need anybody else to tell us what to do, right? And that's, that's really it. We do need, and the thing is that we have difficulty in understanding what we need to do just in the basic things of this life, right? They say to change a light bulb, somebody has to show us how to change a light bulb, right?
Yeah.
Or, to fix a car or whatever, you have to watch a YouTube video nowadays, or you get somebody else to help you, and so forth and so on. And those are just simple things. But to overcome delusions that we have created since beginningless time, it's inconceivable, it's almost, what one would need to do, because if it had been that easy, then we would have figured all this out by now, right? We wouldn't still be here struggling with our delusion.
Right.
So that's the thing. That's what the teacher brings to the table, and also they're a model, right? They show us what it can be, what the end result can be, and it's inspiring, right? And in the Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga, there's a prayer that says, please bless me with intelligence that easily understands and explains the vast scriptures, May my capacity for listening, reflecting, and meditating increase. May my gift of explaining, debating, and writing improve. May I achieve the general and sublime realizations. And then it says, please bless me to become just like you. And there's another verse like this about other realization. Then it says, please bless me to become just like you. And so that's what the teacher shows us, is how to be, how to be in this world. And that, what we see in this, in what we see just on television or just in our normal daily lives is not really, the ideal. The ideal is what they show us, how they live, their ethical behavior, their, practice. I mean, like, I remember that I found it so amazing. I was in a retreat with Lama Zopa Rinpoche, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. This is after he had just had his stroke a couple of years, year and a half before. So this was his first retreat after his stroke. So we hadn't seen him, since his stroke, right? And his left side, is it right side was paralyzed, right? And, at that retreat, it's a 2-week retreat, and, you have to do the 35 Buddha prostrations every morning, it's 5:30 in the morning. And it's just, you feel like, oh my God, it's half asleep and I'm blah, 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 right? And then he walks in, right? And he walks up to the front of the altar, and he can barely bend down with help from his, attendant, with one arm, like his attendant is holding up this arm because he has no control over it. And then he's with his left arm, he goes down on the ground, and then he finds a way to get himself back up again, like this. And it was so inspiring. I'm like, oh my God, look at this guy who probably doesn't need to really do prostrations, right? But he's spending, and it took him like, probably a minute to do one prostration, right? But there he is still doing prostrations, right? And that was just so inspiring, I thought. And it really made, I really thought, oh my God. So that, it really puts it in perspective. My negative thoughts about, oh my God, I have to do 35 Buddha, 35, whatever it is, 50 prostrations at the most, at 5:30 in the morning, and I'm in good health, that I don't have that much, I have a little bit of back trouble, but that's about it. And this guy is doing it when he can barely do it, right? And he doesn't need to do it. So yeah, so it was very inspiring. So it kind of puts, those are the kinds of things I think that are really, that a teacher with whom one has a connection can really make a difference. They can really turn your mind. And I think we're really fortunate that we have someone like Rinpoche who has impeccable ethical, impeccable ethics and morality. And he's constantly working for us, his students, and for, of course, everyone else. Because they're not, there are lots of other Buddhist teachers who are not necessarily ethically correct. We hear about them, unfortunately, not infrequently.
Yeah.
And, but, Rinpoche is just faultless, and so we're just extremely fortunate to be in his presence and to be able to follow him, to follow his words. And so anyway, so that's the job of a teacher. And without a teacher, that's why without a teacher, we can't really make that much progress. I mean, there are people, the Pratika Buddhas, the ones who, there's solitary realizers, right? Who there's 3 kinds of practitioners. There's the Pratika Buddha, solitary realizers. They're the hearers, solitary realizers, and and bodhisattvas. I think. So hearers are those who gain realizations, they have created such amazing merit in the past lives that they hear the teachings and instantly, they're ripe for the realization. And so this is what happened when the Buddha's disciples, for example, he would give a teaching and somebody would just immediately like become an arhat, right? But that's because he had done all this work in his previous life. He would just, all he needed was that final, direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the hearers. And then there's Pratika Buddhas, the solitary, they're called solitary realizers. And they basically, they've again created an incredible amount of merit, and they don't need other teachers. They don't need, so they go off in the forest. That's at least the standard practice. They go off in the forest and they meditate for eons and not eons, but many, many years. And they gain realizations and they become arhats and so forth and so on, right? We are not, most of us are not like that. So we need a teacher to show us the way, and right, because we unfortunately, we don't have we didn't create enough karma to be born at the Buddha's time and be one of his disciples. Mm-hmm. And, and we don't have enough karma to be a Pratyeka Buddha at the moment. So we do the next best thing. And fortunately we have, they say that, the way the cycle works of Buddha's cosmology is that you have, these great eons, and then you have a dark eon, it's called. So great eons are where, I'm simplifying it, but the great eons are where the Buddhas appear.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
And then there's dark eons where the Buddhas don't appear, because the Buddhas appear only if students are likely to hear them, right? Or to follow them, or they're ripe, their minds are ripe to make progress. So the dark eons, there is no Buddha Dharma, right? So people are just aimlessly, they're aimlessly just doing whatever they're doing. They're not making any progress whatsoever, and most likely they're regressing. But we are in one of those great eons where the Buddhas have appeared. In fact, Shakyamuni Buddha was the 13th? I can't remember. So we're in a great eon where there have been a dozen or so Buddhas already, Shakyamuni Buddha being the last historical Buddha. Maitreya Buddha is the next to come. And after that, between each Buddha coming, the Dharma, degenerates, right? So the Dharma degenerates constantly until it no longer exists. So for example, the Dharma degenerates, in the beginning after the Buddha passes away, and the, Dharma degenerates over time because people misinterpret the teachings, or there are different versions, different interpretation of the teaching. Different people follow different things. They might have the wrong interpretation. They follow the wrong path, and so forth and so on. And then somebody comes like Lama Tsongkhapa who fix it, who shows again the actual interpretation. And so, so there's some progress, but it slowly degenerates, then the great teachers disappear, and so then there's not so accomplished teachers, and then they disappear too. And finally, the teachings are, maybe they're in written form, but nobody can understand them, so you can read the teachings, but maybe you can't understand them because there's no teacher to interpret them for you or teach them. And then finally, those teachings themselves, the written word disappears, right? And so there is no more teaching left. And then at some point, the Maitreya Buddha or the next Buddha appears and it starts over again, right?
Oh, they will come. Somebody else will come. When they talk about the end, like the 500 or the 500 and the end of the teachings or whatever, that doesn't last. It comes and goes even throughout this 2,500 years since our Buddha Shakyamuni. In this 2,500 years, it has come and gone over that time.
It has come and gone, but we are still in we're still in the early stages, because we still have teachers who can interpret the teachings, and we have the teachings themselves, right?
Okay.
We have authentic, but at some point, I don't know, 200 years, 1,000 years, whatever it is, there will be no more teachers, or authentic teachers at least. And then the teachers themselves, another 1,000 years, let's say, the teachers will disappear, and only the written word will be there. And that might last for another few thousand years.
Right.
And then even that will disappear, right? Because people will forget about them, blah, 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 or, the books are burnt, or, disintegrated, whatever. And that will last for quite a long time, some number of thousand years. But since we are still in the great eon, the next Buddha, Maitreya Buddha, will arise when the time is ripe for people to again make progress, right? So then the cycle will start again. But then again, it will go through that same degeneration, And I believe that in this great eon, Maitreya Buddha will be the last one. So after that, this eon will end, and then the next dark eon will start, right? In which no Buddha appears, right? There are no teachings, there are no teachers, there are no Buddhas, and so forth and so on, right?
Right.
So we are really fortunate that we are, not only are we still in his time of the historical Buddha, but the teachings haven't really, yes, we are in a degenerate time, as they say, but we still have qualified teachers, and maybe there used to be more qualified teachers in the past. I don't know, but we still have qualified teachers, and we still have teachers who want to guide us and show us the way, right? So we're really fortunate that we have that ability, we have that. I don't want to say fortune, because we've created the fortune, of course, but that we live in this time, So I think it's really something to really be thankful for and meditate on, because it's not a given. And we have yet to break free from our delusions, right? And so Rinpoche is tirelessly working for us to be able to conquer our delusions. One of the other inspiring things I remember about Rinpoche was that, of course, he shows what it can be like, what we can be like, the great compassion that one can truly have, and and as we'll talk about, the quality of a teacher and the patience that one can have, and the diligence and the constantly, working for the students. So one of the things, for example, is that, at these retreats, we'd get up at 5 a.m, at 5:30, we'd do the prostrations, or 5:50, whatever it was, 5:30, we do the prostrations. The coffee wasn't even ready yet, right? So, because coffee doesn't get done till 6 o'clock or whatever it is. So you're bleary-eyed, you're doing the prostration. Then you have to take precepts, right? Every day you take precepts. So you're eating only once a day and all that stuff. And so then you do the Guru Puja every morning, and then you have the teachings or meditations throughout the day. And then in the evening, there's another teaching with Rinpoche, and then it doesn't end till about 11:30, midnight, maybe, something like that. And then you have 5 hours of sleep, and you do it all over again, right?
For how long? A month, you said?
It was a month last time, but I think they're going back to doing it 2 weeks. I missed the month one, but I've done all the 2-week ones. Like, I don't know, there's been about 5 or 6 of them so far, But it's, it takes about 3 or 4 days before your body kind of gets used to it, But what I wanted to say is that, at 12:30 in the morning, he finishes his teaching, he walks up the hill because there's a steep hill and he can barely, he can't walk very well. So it takes him probably half an hour to walk up the, 500 yards or whatever it is that he has to walk up the hill to his house. And, then he starts talking on the phone with the students in the Far East, in Singapore and Hong Kong and all this stuff, right? He does that for a few hours. And then he does his practice, he doesn't sleep, right? He just does his meditation. So he does his practices, for a couple of more hours. And then, and he doesn't have to come down at 5:30 in the morning, right? When we're doing our Guru Puja and prostration, but he will come down half the time. He will come down at 5:30, 6 in the morning to be with us, so that we can so that when we're doing the Guru Puja, we have the Guru in front of us, because that creates extra merit, right? So he's doing it not for himself, of course,
Right.
but he's doing it so that the students can get the extra merit so that they can make progress faster, right? That's the kind of thing that just blows my mind, certainly. But it's just so inspiring to see that, that here's someone with such diligence and patience, and we do the same stupid things over and over again even though he gives us advice not to do it and so forth and so on, but he keeps doing it over and over again so that sooner or later it'll stick, So yeah, so like that, so that's the kind of person we need in our lives, instead of, for most of us, I'm not saying about you or about me, but I mean, for most of us, the mentors we look up to are very worldly mentors, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with having worldly mentors, as long as that's not the only mentors that we have, right? And a lot of people, their mentors are basically like, I don't know, whatever they see on TV, right? So it's, so they're just digging themselves even deeper into the hole, because those mentors are leading you into further attachment and aversion and delusions and all that stuff, right? So in so many ways, we're really fortunate.
Then I think we can get scattered too by, like, oh, here's a teacher. Oh, now I'm going to listen to this, now that. And nothing's consistent, nothing's solidified. And I think we can be scattered with what we're doing as a practice, and even with our mind at that point.
And that's something we'll talk about. Yes, absolutely. I think that it is, well, it's, there are a lot of people nowadays who just are dabblers, right? I mean, they're just dabbling in this, dabbling in that, and maybe that works for them. I can't judge them, right? I don't know. I don't know their minds, and I don't know the progress they're making. Maybe they're making lots of progress. What do I know, right? But I certainly do know that if one can find a teacher and stick with that teacher, no matter what, then it's just such an easier path. And one makes, and we'll talk about this, with the blessings of that teacher, it's just like one makes so much more progress, so much faster. It's just what it is, and you want to do, I mean, it just gives you that extra boost to do your practice in a particular way, to do it even when it's difficult, to do it even when times are good, because that's when we don't want to do them. And then when times are not going well, oh yeah, I need to do some practice, blah, 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 right? But so to do it constantly, so it takes a lot of effort, as you know, and but the blessings of the Guru really makes it much easier. I've noticed from my own part, from my own side, the times I've gone through ups and downs, of course, in my practice, just like anybody else. But the times that, when I reach out to my teacher and he gives me advice and I follow it, things just work, things just happen. And that's just the blessing of and it's not from their side, it's all from our side, right? It's the relationship is all from our side. So it's really for us to do it, that's it. They don't need to, it's nothing with, there's not, it's all, we have it totally under our control. In other words, we don't have to, used to be that, in old Tibet, if you wanted to like follow a teacher, you had to go up to him, make offerings, ask him for permission. Can I be your student? And he would say, he may say, no, come back in a year. And then you would have to come back in a year. And he would say, okay, maybe let's see if you have made progress and whether we don't even have to do any of that stuff, right? I mean, the teachers are just there. They just show up, right? I mean, it's just amazing how much easier it is for us. And these are great teachers like Rinpoche, like, Ling Rinpoche, I mean, in the monastery, it's much harder in India in monasteries to come across these teachers. We actually come across them much more than they do, because, because they have their own, I mean, in monasteries, they have their classes and so forth and so on. So that they have their own routine, right? It's not like the teachers, Lama Zopa Rinpoche is not going to go to Sarajay Monastery and teach a class. I mean, he does show up once in a while and leads a puja or whatever it is, something like that, right? But he's not going to like lead a retreat at Sarajay Monastery, right? So we're so fortunate in that sense that we have those teachers who come to the West. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those teachers have now passed away, which is true. But next, like in the last 10 years or so, we have a lot fewer teachers than we used to, the old lamas. Mm-hmm. But new lamas are coming up now. They're incarnations like Ling Rinpoche, the Ling Rinpoche, who, the previous Ling Rinpoche used to be His Holiness's teacher. Actually, His Holiness, I have the book. He wrote a wonderful book called The Life of My Teacher. I think it's called Life of My Teacher, of the previous Ling Rinpoche. And by the way, the current Ling Rinpoche, who's we invited him to Vajrapani, and so he came, and so I met him there. He's this wonderful kind of roly-poly guy, He's like maybe 30 years old, or maybe, I don't know. He's relatively young. But he has agreed to come to TNL. We made a request to him, and he couldn't come this year because of COVID and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But we're hoping, Charmaine and I are going to make, through Geshe-la. I mean, he's going to listen to Geshe-la more than Charmaine and me. But through Geshe-la, make another request to him, and hopefully he will come next year. We'll see, Nice. But see, he had said yes, so I'm pretty sure he will come either next year, if not, then year after that. But anyway, so there are new teachers coming up like that. And there are also Western teachers who are now very accomplished, right? Venerable Thupten Chodron, for example, there's Venerable Rene Fusi. He's one of my teachers, great meditator, great yogi. And others, senior students in the FPMT, for example, right? I mean, I'm just talking about FPMT because that's what I know, but there are other traditions, of course, there are other students. So that's happening too,
And we have teachers that have been taught by Lama Zopa and Lama Yeshe, and they're in the West too. So we don't have direct Lama Zopa or Lama Yeshe, but we have people.
That's right.
Had teachings from them that are here teaching us.
Right, exactly. Because these teachers like Venerable Rabina or Venerable Rene or Venerable Adrian Felt or whatever, Venerable Gatso, he's an old, I hope he's still alive. He was relatively old. Anyway. Venerable George. I mean, they've gotten teachings from all those masters, right? So they've gotten teachings from Riba Rinpoche, from the old Ling Rinpoche, from Song Rinpoche, from all these great masters, who passed away in the 90s mostly. And then, of course, in the 2000s, we still had Kirti Senchab Rinpoche and Choden Rinpoche, who, those are the ones I took teachings from, so they were still around when I was, had joined the Dharma.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I'd seen Ripa Rinpoche towards the end, but I really didn't make a strong connection with him. So, but then they passed away. Choden Rinpoche and Kirti Senchab Rinpoche died in the mid 2000s. And for the last 10 years, we really didn't have any Tibetan lamas, but the Western students were coming up. And so we could follow them, right? Because they had gotten the transmissions from them. And of course, Lama Zopa Rinpoche,
Yes.
So, yeah. But now Ling Rinpoche is coming up again. And there are other, there's a couple of other teachers who are also, coming up. So hopefully that cycle will start again.
Oselhita.
I'm sorry?
Oselhita.
Right. Lama Oso, for example. I don't know how he's more involved now than he used to be. So I don't know what his intentions are, but hopefully he will teach. He teaches mainly kind of more not pure Dharma subjects. That's not his thing.
Yeah.
So like last time, a couple of years ago at Land of Medicine Buddha, I was there and he gave a teaching, and I think it was on, I can't remember what it was on, but it was one of the it was like an ancillary subject,
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of more of a mixing secular and, secular and traditional approach. And maybe that's what we need. I don't know.
Maybe that's what the young people are. As long as, yeah.
Right. I don't know. I mean, His Holiness also is stressing a lot on what he calls secular ethics, right? He doesn't really write books on, on the 3 principles of the path or Bodhisattva, Shantideva's text or those kind of things anymore, right?
Yeah.
He's much more stressing now using Buddhist ideas in daily life in the West without the Buddhism, type, name put on it, So maybe that's what it's going to be like. I don't know. For me, maybe because I'm old school. That seems like a degeneration. But what do I know? His Holiness must know something I don't know. So that's maybe that's the way to do it. That's the way Dharma will continue. So anyway, okay. So then, why do we need a teacher? And the one thing that I wanted to cover in this week's the first class was the qualities of a teacher, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's very important that we know the qualities because that's how we know how to choose a qualified teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And His Holiness, I mean, and so, what is that? There is a quote. It says, rely on the teacher's words, not what is it?
Actions. I'm going to turn on the light here.
Yeah, of course, now I can't find it. In any case, so we have to know how to choose a qualified teacher. Here it is. So rely on the message, the 4 reliances given by the Buddha. Rely on the message of the teacher, not on his personality.
Mm.
Rely on the meaning, not just on the words, rely on the real meaning, not on the provisional one, and then finally rely on your wisdom mind, not on your ordinary judgmental mind, right? So, so we have to know which teacher is actually teaching us things that are teaching us in a way that is concordant with the scriptures, right? What the Buddha said. And we don't yet certainly have the wisdom necessarily to be able to distinguish between what is a correct teaching and what is not a correct teaching. Sometimes one knows, but a lot of times one doesn't know. And so one can end up following, a teacher who may not be authentic, right? So we need, and so His Holiness says, for example, that one should attend a teacher or follow a teacher for a dozen years, 12 years, before you officially consider him your teacher. Because as we'll talk later, the relationship, once one makes a connection with a teacher and says, he's my guru or she's my guru, then it's a strong connection that one can't easily just break, right? So one has to be careful. And we're just talking about the sutra, in the sutra path, right? I mean, the tantra path, that's another, and we'll talk about that too, but that's an even more complex and difficult. Once you can take someone as your Vajra master, it's very, very difficult to sever that connection, right? If he or she turns out to be not an authentic teacher. But just in the sutra path, His Holiness says, inspect a teacher for 12 years before you say he's my teacher or she's my teacher. By the way, when I say he, I also mean she.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah. So 12 years, you inspect for 12 years before you consider someone your teacher, because you want to be absolutely sure that this relation, the karmic relationship that you're going to continue for endless lives, is a relationship that will get you there, right? I mean, again, in the Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga, it says, please, Guru, descend into my heart, guide me with your great compassion, and please remain with me until samsara ends. Remain with me inseparably until samsara ends, right? And so that's the relationship we're making. And we make prayers a lot of times, and that we say that we will continue to meet our teachers in the future lives and follow them and so forth and so on. So this is a pretty, I don't want to say heavy. It's not heavy. It's a pretty serious commitment one makes, right? If one considers someone his or her teacher. And so His Holiness says, you make absolutely sure that he is the correct one, and there are, and so anyway, so then one needs to know what the qualifications are for a teacher, right? And this is in your readings anyway, but I will. By the way, there's a wonderful book by Lama Zopa Rinpoche. It's one I asked Venerable Don to put on the website as a recommended reading. It's called The Heart of the Path. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it. It's called The Heart.
Yes.
The Heart of the Path, with Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa's picture on there, and it's all about Guru devotion. Okay. And so anyway, so here he said the quality of the Mahayana Guru are, he says, rely upon a virtuous friend who is subdued, pacified, highly pacified, so those are the 10 qualities, right? Subdued, pacified, highly pacified, has greater knowledge, has perseverance, is learned in the scripture, has realized emptiness, is skillful in teaching, has a compassionate nature, and has abandoned discouragement, right? So there's 6 of these that are considered the qualities of the guru, right? And there's 4 of these that are the qualities that you want to look for, because that's what he uses to help students, right? So among the 6 qualities of guru, you have, it says pacified, he's subdued, pacified, and completely pacified, right? So, yeah. So subdued means that he has impeccable morality. His foundation of his, he has subdued his baser instincts, if you will, right? He has impeccable ethics, because without, as the Buddha said, without ethical behavior, one can make no progress along the path. Because how can you make progress on the path? You can try to do everything to accumulate merit and blah, 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 and purify negativities. But if you're constantly creating new negativities, right, you're never going to make progress, right? And you can't build, it's like building a foundation, building a house and your foundation is like quicksand, right? I mean, it's like that. So ethical behavior is the basic foundation for it. And so when they say subdued, they mean, that he has very, clear ethical, has very strong foundation in ethics, right? So he doesn't lie, cheat, steal, sexual, you hear so much about current, like sexual misconduct and, all this other stuff, right? I mean, so.
That's one of the things that got me to say, because when I was doing this other group and we'd read a book and I'd start trying to follow a teacher or come down and then you find out they had to disrobe for sexual misconduct or financial indiscretions.
Right.
And it was like, what is wrong with these teachers in the West? Because it seemed like not everybody, but the people that I thought, oh, maybe I could study this person. And I just gave up and said, I'm just going to sit and meditate, And one of the things when I was at that first retreat, when Craig and Claire were sitting behind me, is we had these little breakout discussions. And there was another woman in our little group who it was her first time. And Craig said, one of the things about FPMT is that they are really strict on qualified teachers. And if there's any abuse going on, they're gonna
right.
look into it.
Yes.
So that was one of the things I thought, okay, I feel like I can trust here.
Right.
And
that's right.
And that's so far what I've seen,
And there has been I won't go into any names, but there has been a high lama who is not part of the FPMT, but he taught in some of the FPMT centers, and he was considered a registered, like an FPMT teacher.
Yeah.
And he was found to have had some, sexual harassment and misconduct issues, and so they basically said no more. All right. I mean, they basically said, no, we're not going to have him teach anything in the FPMT. Right. I mean, that's the kind of thing that you have to have. Right. And I found myself that that I haven't, I've heard of lots of students in other traditions, of improprieties and stuff, but I haven't heard of any improprieties within the students even of the FPMT,
Yeah.
So, like that. But if there is, Rinpoche comes down on them like a ton of bricks, and they will never do it again. He might sometimes will make them disrobe, but a lot of times he won't make them disrobe, but he will scare the bejesus out of them, and they will never do it again. So, so like that. but that's the subdued part, right? To be subdued. And then it says pacified and highly pacified, right?
Mm-hmm.
So pacified means that he has a strong practice of concentration. He has a very subdued, pacified mind in the sense that, in the shamatha meditation, in shamatha, he can basically, ideally, you want him to be at the ninth level, like shamatha, you may know this already. Yeah. So there's the 9 levels of shine, calm abiding, aptitudes. And so ideally, you want someone who is at the 9th level, who can hold an object effortlessly for any period of time, in meditation object for any period of time. And so that's the pacified they're talking about here, right? Okay. Because with that, because then they can show the students on how to go to the 9th level. But not only that, whatever he applies his mind to just becomes, it's easy for him to, make realizations and so forth and so on, right? So that's the concentration bit. He is pacified through his concentration, right? Then there's very pacified. So what very pacified means is not only does he have concentration, but with single point of concentration, he has also mixed single point of concentration and special insight, which is the the reasoning on wisdom, right? On the true nature of reality. So that he has both has shamatha and vipassana, that's the that term, right? So that's what pacified, subdued, pacified, and completely pacified means. And if you think back on, if you remember some of the teachings and you think about the 3 higher trainings, the 3 higher trainings are concentration, ethics, concentration, and wisdom. So these are the 3 things, basic things that they're talking about in the subdued, pacified, and highly pacified, right? And then there's 3 more qualities to look for in the guru, which is that you want him to be rich in scriptures. That's the term they use. I don't remember what Lama Zopa uses here, but rich in scriptures means he's very knowledgeable. He can quote from the scriptures. Whatever logic or reasoning he gives, is correct because he can go back to the Buddha's words or Nagarjuna's words or the scriptures that we take as authentic, right? Dignaga's words, Chandrakirti's words, all those things. So he can essentially quote, because these guys, they have amazing mental ability, so they can just memorize all this stuff. So that he knows, you have studied all these scriptures, he knows them in a deep way, with a profound depth, and he can then, give teaching and make it accessible to you, in easy way, because he understands it so extremely well, right? So rich in scriptures, and he has greater knowledge than the student, right? So, for obvious reasons, right? Because if you want to be like the teacher, as we say, please bless me to be just like you, well, he needs to be of a higher, realization than me, right?
Right.
So
I go down to another level.
Right. That's right. And even, and that's one reason why one of the vows of a monastic is that they cannot go to any teaching of anyone who is a layperson, for example. Right? Mm-hmm. Or anyone who is, who has, well, I don't know, but certainly layperson, right? Now, sometimes people make exceptions nowadays because the layperson is very, very qualified, So they might go, but I mean, but back in the old days, when you didn't have lay people who were like us now, like you have, Robert Thurman, or you have, George Dreyfus, or you have Alex Berzin, these are lay people, but they are very, 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 knowledgeable and, realized. So now for them, I think they can make exceptions, but in general, that's, that's why they have, because the teacher is not higher, needs to be higher in knowledge, right? There was also one, for example, like there's also a vow in the Mahayana, in the on the Bodhisattva vows, I think. It's the Bodhisattva vows, where you cannot go to a teaching of someone who is in the Hinayana tradition, right? If you're in the Mahayana tradition, you cannot go to a teaching by somebody in the Hinayana tradition, right? Mm-hmm. But again, Atisha, for example, who's a great Mahayana teacher, he went to, Sumatra to what's his, anyway, Sarlingpa, he took a 2.5-year boat ride to get there, and he stayed there for 18 years, I think, to get the teachings from Sarlingpa, because Sarlingpa was the only one who had the true transmission and the lineage teachings of compassion, right? Of the bodhicitta. So but Sarlingpa was not a Mahayana teacher, right? He was a Hinayana teacher, and Atisha always held him in the greatest regard, right? So there are exceptions, but in general, this is the teacher needs to be higher than the student. Mm-hmm. So that's the three: subdued, pacified, highly pacified, needs to be higher, rich in scriptures, higher than the student. What's the sixth one? Then I forgot. I think it's, let me see, maybe has perseverance. Is that what it is? Oh, of course, hello, can understand suchness. So here, what that means is, so highly pacified meant that the teacher has used concentration and special insight, and has gotten realizations. Now, has realized suchness means that it's one step farther, which is that he at least has an inferential perception of reality, right? So he may not have a direct perception, because I checked on this actually. It doesn't have to be a direct perception, like in meditative equipoise, seeing the non-inherent existence of self and phenomena. He could have an inferential understanding through logical reasoning and so forth and so on of suchness, which is, suchness here means,
what is?
Oh, so suchness means how such as things are. Suchness is a term like, from Sanskrit. It's such. This is the Buddha would say something like, and such, this is such, or something like that. And so then it became suchness, right? The translation became suchness. But okay. Suchness basically means the true nature of reality. Okay. The non-existent, non-inherent existence of self and phenomena, right? So that's suchness. So when it says has the sixth quality is understand suchness, he has, actually Geshe Sopa says, he directly realizes the final nature of reality. Okay, so I was wrong. So that means that he has a direct perception of reality.
Okay.
Right? Direct, at least in meditation. It doesn't have to be out of meditation, right? Because once you're out of meditation, even I think even at the 10th level bodhisattva or 9th level bodhisattva, you still have to be in meditative equipoise to have a direct perception. Only the Buddha has a direct perception out of at all times, But in any case, in meditative equipoise, he must have a direct perception of reality.
Okay.
Right. So that's understanding suchness. So those are the 6, okay, that of qualities of the teacher. Then there are the 4 that are the qualities he uses to guide the student, right? And so one is skilled in eloquent is the word they use, but skilled in speaking or communicating to others, right? So Geshe Sopa said there are many different ways to express something. Some are elegant and some may be dull. Spiritual teachers must not only know how to guide the student, but should be able to express their instructions in a manner that sticks in the student's mind, right? So sometimes he may use a dull way to express something because the student may have it's not politically correct, but still a dull faculty.
That would be me.
Me too. And then other times they will use different, and it's very interesting. I will tell you, Lama Zopa Rinpoche definitely has that quality, I've personal experiences where he will say he will say the same thing, but 2 different people will hear 2 different things.
Oh, yeah.
Right. The dull person hears a cursory, it gets a superficial understanding of what it means. But the guy next to me, and I've checked notes, I've compared notes, the guy next to me will have a totally different understanding of what it is, right? And that's the kind of qualities that these great teachers have, and they say the Buddha, for example, he teaches whatever he says is understood by every being in whatever language he knows, right? The Buddha doesn't speak English or Spanish or whatever, right? He speaks in Buddha language, and everyone hears it in whatever language they hear, right? Or they know, right? So those are the kind of qualities that they're talking about here. Hang on for a minute. I'm just going to plug my computer, and it says my battery's running low. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going dark and light and.
Yeah, just a second.
Tissue.
All right. So he is eloquent, or also use a word skilled in speaking or communicating with others. Then he has great diligence, which means he takes special joy in virtuous activities. A teacher will take great diligence. Teacher with great diligence exerts an untiring effort to help others by teaching, guiding, and training disciples. So that's like Rinpoche showing up at 5:30 in the morning, or doing prostrations, just to inspire others, right? That took a lot of diligence, I'm sure. Or like one time, well, anyway, enough of the stories. So,
go ahead.
Oh, well, one time, it's funny. One of these retreats, it was 12:30 at night, maybe 1 a.m. This was before he had a stroke, so they didn't monitor his late teaching how late he went as much. So this was like 1 a.m. And all of us are trudging up because we know we're only going to get 4 hours of sleep at night. And then, and we're all going behind Rinpoche, of course, because, you know, he's walking ahead. And he sees this poor snake on the road. This was very dark, right? It's 1 a.m. Poor snake on the road and his flashlight, and it's been run over by a car. It's obviously dead, right? It's like totally smashed, and it's just bloody and disgusting looking and all this other stuff, right? But Rinpoche immediately stops. He like bends down on the snake. He's like 6 inches from the snake, and he does all these mantras. And, you know, he stands there for 10 minutes, you know, doing all these mantras, all this other stuff, while we're like, oh my God, when is Rinpoche going to get done? We want to go to sleep, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, and then he gets up and he says, okay, you all have to do the mantra. Each of you has to do this mantra, I don't know, 21 times, and then blow on the snake, right? To bless it for its next life. And, you know, this tells you what kind of student I am, but I kind of did and it was so disgusting looking, right? So I did the mantra 21 times, and I kind of like stood over the snake as far as I could, and I blew on it, right? I don't know whether my breath actually made it to the snake, but I didn't want to look at the snake because it was, you know, it was horrible looking. So that's the kind of thing where he's, you know, that's the diligence.
Right next to it, right?
Right. So that's the diligence, because, you know, he helps others by teaching, guiding, and training. He's guiding us in how to practice true compassion, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, it was like 6 inches. And, you know, one of the qualities of a Buddha is that they say he or she finds everyone equally attractive. And attractive here means that he's attractive on the inside.
Yeah.
Right. So he sees, regardless of whether the person is Mother Teresa or is Hitler, he sees the inner qualities, and he sees them all in the same way. Right. And that was Rinpoche, right? He didn't see the snake's physical body like I did, which is gross and disgusting and all this other stuff, right? He saw the snake's inner being, right? And to him, that snake is no more disgusting than looking at me, you know? I mean, it's, you know, it's like that, right? But I'm not like that, right? I don't see people as attractive, right? On the inside. So yeah, so that's the kind of quality he has, you know? So diligence, so that's diligence. Eloquent, we talked about. And then the last two is he has great patience, because, you know, he has to keep, you have to tell the students the same things over and over again. Yes. They don't follow your instruction. They come to you with the same problems, and, you know, and you have to repeat yourself over and over again. You know, you have to scold them, this and that, you know, all this other stuff, right? They get sidetracked, they get distracted, they get dull. I mean, you know, they fall off the wagon. I mean, so many things, right? But you have to be patient to keep continuing to work for them, right? To guide them and so forth, you know. So that's what the patience comes in, you know. And I don't know how they do it. You know, I can't imagine, you know, I mean, I think middle school teachers have trouble, you know. I don't know how, you know, the great teachers do it, you know. And oh, that's right. And he or she may be tired, have to travel a great distance, or the weather may be an obstacle, but they still will make the effort. The disciple does not follow his advice or makes him angry. Oh. In such circumstances, spiritual teachers do not make an effort to help others by providing teachings. This shows the lack of great patience. Though difficulties arise, teachers should not get discouraged, otherwise they will not truly reach their goal of helping others, or they will not reach their goal of truly helping others, right? So the great patience. And the last one, and this is where we'll leave it, is the teacher should have great compassion. Mm-hmm. So such teachers do not teach for the sake of their own benefit, wealth, or fame, but act out of great compassion for the people they are teaching. If deep down a teacher's principal thought is, by giving this teaching, I may receive wealth and honor, then this virtue is lacking.
Yeah.
The famous Kadampa teacher Potawa said to Chengawa, his primary student, whenever I was teaching, I never expected so much as a thank you, because there is not one sentient being who is not in a pitiable situation. So for qualified teachers, everyone is an object of compassion. They do not expect anything of themselves, And so that's why, like most of the time when Rinpoche, at the end of a teaching, when Rinpoche gets, offerings and stuff, a lot of times he just like gives it back to the center, sometimes he will keep a little bit for like his charities he does, but yeah. So anyway, so those are the qualities to look for, and it's not easy to find those qualities, and you can read in the, if you read the first not section, but the first essay or whatever it is in your readings, you'll see that, it says that if you can't find a teacher with all 10 qualities, then find a teacher with 5, which is the ethics concept, passive, subdued, pacified, truly pacified, and then I believe compassion and suchness. If you can't find those, find the 3, which is passive, in anyway. So like that, right? It's very hard to find those, and maybe we'll talk about this next time. I don't know. It's kind of getting a little later, but one is that how to tell if a teacher is not what the word is, correct, right? I mean, I've gone through this myself. So, it's important to know how to tell if a teacher is not authentic, and then how to distance oneself from the teacher, right? Because because it can be difficult. So there are specific things one can do to try to ameliorate, any negative merits one may create by, you don't want to give up the teacher, but there are things one can do, So we can talk about that next time. So, any questions? Anything else?
I don't think so. I think you pretty much answered. I mean, we have teachers at our center, and I mean, I'm assuming Geshe-la meets at least most of those qualities, of course.
I think you can be I think you can be relatively sure.
Kind of who I go to for practices to give me my practice and stuff. So
right, that's right.
And Lama Zopa, I know he was here, and yeah, so obviously he's trustworthy, I know.
Right, and and
be a direct, I don't have direct teaching from him, or
if you can try to make a direct connection with him, not because necessarily because because if you can create a karmic connection in this life, then you're much more likely to be able to be with, make a karmic connection and keep the karmic connection alive in the next life, that like that, right? So that's one reason to make the connection, even if it's difficult. And, Lama Zopa, for example, I think next year he's supposed to do the retreat again, in North Carolina. So if you're able to even go there for a weekend, you don't have to go there for the entire 2 weeks. And to make the connection with him, you can write to him, and ask him for advice. I do that not infrequently. Yeah. And he will answer you. He does answer every letter. So like that,
doesn't sleep.
Yeah. So it's good to make a connection if you can. So maybe we'll end today with a dedication. So so we forgot to do the refuge prayer this earlier today. Oh, well, we'll do it next time.
I did one.
Oh,
here.
good. You did it. Okay. I didn't do it. So you can tell that,
Okay.
I'm already fallen off the web. But anyway, let's do our dedication. So whatever merit we have created by speaking, by hearing, by contemplating on this topic, on Guru devotion, probably the most important topic in the Lamrim, may we create further causes to continue to make connection with authentic teachers, with valid, qualified teachers, to continue to meet them in all our future lives, and that we continue to follow them with diligence and do exactly as they say, so that we can make quick progress for the benefit of not just ourselves, but for all beings who are suffering in samsara. Oh, and let's dedicate with compassion and with emptiness so that we can seal it. By the merits of these virtues, may I become a Buddha and lead all beings into that enlightened state. May the precious Buddhi mind not yet born arise and grow, and may that born not decline, but increase more and more. Just as the brave Manjushri Samantabhadra and all those with knowledge dedicated extensively, I dedicate just as they did. By these empty virtues, may I, no. By empty virtues, may I, who's empty, achieve enlightenment that is empty, and lead all beings who are empty to that enlightenment, myself alone. Om. Thank you.
Thanks, Shankar.
You know about sealing it with compassion and emptiness, right? Dedication, sealing a dedication with compassion and emptiness.
Well, I know we're supposed to dedicate. I don't know what.
Okay, so dedicating with either dedicating and sealing with either emptiness or compassion, they recommended, because you know how in a moment of anger you can throw away, I guess, or eons of positive karma becomes impotent, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But if you seal with compassion or emptiness or both, then that merit cannot be what do you call it? Negated, or whatever, So seal it that no matter what you do, that will continue to grow in all your lifetimes.
Okay. Well,
That's why Rinpoche does this. May I, that is empty, achieve enlightenment, that is empty, all this other stuff, right?
Oh, okay.
So
cool.
Anyway, okay, very good.
Right.
Talk to you. See you next week. Thank you for coming.
Bye. Take care.
Bye. Bye.